Hello YouTube, I'm Dazzling One, and today's topic is that of fallen angels. Now I know I've gone over them before, but I plan on going into a greater amount of detail than I have before, and if any of this sounds repetitive, I apologize in advance. But what is interesting is I'm having more and more people write to me about dreams they are having and experiences involving these spirits. I feel it would be ignorant of me to ignore what is going on around, and that is why I want to dedicate this video to the subject of fallen angels, and also talk a little bit about Hollow Earth and Project Bluebeam and how I feel it relates to space travel in the near future. And also, with movies like the Noah movie out just released, for those without a strong biblical background, they will be deceived. It is an inaccurate depiction of what occurred in Genesis, spreading lies, distorting the truth about the Nephilim that were present then, as well as tarnishing the image of Noah and his family. It is shameful, but no surprise as well. As always, before I go on to speak on fallen angels, I want to start by talking about their fall from heaven. Now, some use Revelations 12:7 as a reference, while others believe it is talking about a future event that will result in them permanently being locked out of heaven, whereas Satan and the other one-third will no longer be able to go up and accuse people. And when this occurs, they will make their move in deceiving the world they are returning using the visage of extraterrestrials. I've heard interesting theories such as angels still fall to this day, contrary to the notion that they are more robotic in nature, lacking free will. But truth is, they do have it, and take Lucifer for example. So although I have no scripture I can use to back this claim up, that they still fall to this day, the possibility does seem more plausible than at first glance. Revelations 12:7 reads, "Then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called devil or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to earth, and his angels with him." So people use this as a mental image of when Lucifer fell and the one-third rebelled, falling from heaven. Now, most Christians can agree on this, but where the divide comes in is what happened to those angels. In Jude 1:6, "And the angels who did not keep their position of authority, but abandoned their proper dwelling, these he, for it God did not spare angels when they sinned, but sent them to hell, putting them in chains of darkness, to be held in judgment, and has kept in darkness bound with everlasting chains for judgment on the great day." And 2 Peter 2:4 basically says the same thing. So some take it to mean the original one-third, which I strongly disagree with. Why? Because it was that, if that were the case, then why are there fallen angels still on earth oppressing people to this day? In Ephesians 6:12, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, spiritual wickedness in high places." So again, we see the words principalities and powers of darkness. No, if you have watched even one of my videos other than this, then you will know I take the stance that fallen angels are not demons. Some whine and say, why does it matter? Here is why. My answer to the question is, it does in fact matter. And why, you may ask, and here's why. Every religion in the world is divinely inspired. Nearly every prophet seems to have an encounter with an angel or some other spiritual being, no matter if you're talking about Muhammad, Joseph Smith, Ellen G. White, and the list goes on. They all claim to have been visited by an angel or some other supernatural entity. This ties into why it is the paramount over what I continue to emphasize. If you think that fallen angels are demons today, if you happen to be visited by one, would you be able to discern the difference between a fallen and a holy angel? If you thought fallen angels became these ugly, hellish creatures, you might just accept what the angel had to say as truth, even if it contradicted your belief system. A lot of false prophets today are inspired by fallen angels and are moving people to angel worship. There is a scripture that states in Colossians 2:18, "Let no man beguile you of your reward in a voluntary humility and worshipping of angels, introducing into those things which he hath not seen, vainly puffed up by his fleshly mind." It is possible to lose sight of God and worship his angels. At a young age, we are taught angels are beautiful beings, most times depicted as a beautiful woman or a child. We are also taught that they are good, sexless, gentle. They are guardians. Everyone has one, and so on. Well, today I am not here to dismiss some of those today I'm here to dismiss some of those notions. I'm not trying to upset anyone, and it's up to you if you agree with me. Every time an angel is mentioned in the Bible, they are referred to as Ben Elohim, or sons of God, always sons, never daughters, never beings of God, but sons. Now, some may say in a plural sense there are female angels included, but if that were the case, I think it would say something like sons and daughters of God. Every time an angel appeared to someone in the Bible, they came in the form of a young male, and most of the time the people fell on their face and start to worship them, and the angels told them not to. I don't want to destroy anyone's ethereal fantasy, but I do not believe there is a such thing as a female angel, whether holy or fallen. Like I said, we can agree to disagree on this. Moving on to angels' jobs, they are to be messengers, and they are warriors as well as worshiping God. And I think Hollywood has done an incredible job of distorting their image to seem more gentle and feminine. Just in recent years, are we seeing more of the warrior side of angels? We understand that fallen angels rule over territories and so forth. So now that all that has been established and we have spoken about what angels are originally created to do and spoke on the one-third, let's talk a little bit about another group of fallen angels named the Gregorian or Watchers. So again, you have probably heard me talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it again. Originally, God appointed 200 angels, and their job was to watch over mankind and oversee the affairs of man. However, they got tempted by the women and they lusted after them, and 200 of them descended to Mount Hermon. If you watch movies created by Paramount Pictures, you can watch the stars fall into the mountain. If you put an angel on top of your Christmas tree or even a star, you have just paid recognition to their descension to earth, whether you know it or not or believe it. Across the world, they have many names. The favorite of the ancient astronaut theorists are the Anunnaki, who were the supposed creators of man, and they created man to mine gold for the gods. There were two brothers, Enki and Enlil. Enki was evil and Enlil was good, and this is just scratching the surface of the Sumerian creation story. The Watchers helped establish society as we know it. If they appointed their followers the high positions of kings and queens, and they and their wives ruled over people as gods and goddesses and introduced currency. See, money is an illusion. If we all agreed to stop using it, then it would have no value. The phrase money makes the world go round does hold truth, and as we know it in the Bible, it states in 1 Timothy 6:10, for the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves throughout with many sorrows, which is true, not money itself, but the love of it leads to us to do all kinds of things. People kill for it. People will marry people for the sole purpose of it alone. They lie, they cheat, they steal for it. And also you're seeing more money worship occurring in the church. This is why the elitists, who are most likely trillionaires, have enough money to pay off the debt, give to us all, and end world hunger and so forth, but they aren't going to do it. Why? Because sharing would limit their power. When there are no poor people and everyone is equal per se, you have no one left to control. You aren't powerful anymore. And also because they also believe they're superior to the rest of us, having what they believe to be the DNA still from the Watchers. And Satan is the prince of the world, and these principalities have their avatars in power now. And until after the return of Christ, we won't see a change. These Watchers also introduce cosmetics, jewelry, hair dye, and without them, women wouldn't have the fashion they have today. I'm not against women wearing makeup or dyeing their hair or painting their nails or fixing up, but like what occurred in the book of Enoch, much fornication does a lot of times come out of it, and because of it, a lot of times when women do decide to fix up, not all the time, because I understand sometimes you want to look nice, and that's okay, and, if you want to go on a date and look nice, that's okay too. But some people really only fix up so they can hook up and then it ends in the bedroom. Sorcery was another huge thing, whether you are talking about astrology, which most people I know my age will tweet about their sign and how their sign has these traits, which is sad. Weapons being another. I believe nuclear weapons were inspired by them, just as they introduced weaponry in Noah's time. Technology of sorts and lots of it we are using today, various forms of witchcraft and so on. Their children were seen as heroes for their great size, and also as you see their skulls, they were very large, so their brains were highly advanced, and they imposed their lawlessness on the people of Earth. But that wasn't enough. They began corrupting everything on Earth, from the plants to the animals and so forth, a form of eugenics, creating species like centaurs, minotaurs, and other creatures from mythology. And This still goes on to this day with modern scientists. After World War II, under Project Paperclip, the U.S. agreed to bring some Nazi soldiers over to America. They used their ideals from experimenting on the Jews during World War II for MK Ultra. Also, Werner von Braun, who was instrumental in building the rocket, was a Nazi as well. During the time of the Watchers, according to the Book of Joshua, there was something called a drought some women could drink to keep them from aging, but the price they paid was that they became barren, which sounds a lot like birth control minus the fact you still age. Casadega introduced abortion, so a lot of things we see today are just from them. We wouldn't have prostitution or pornography if it weren't for them as well. Now, what pains me is some think it's just stopped there after they were chained, but there are still another 1/3 who are not a part of the Grigori that originally fell with Lucifer, who continue to interfere with the affairs of the world today as we know it. Many ancient cultures believe in a subterranean civilization. The names vary, whether it's Shabolba, meaning place of fear, Agartha, and so on. This is what some may call Hollow Earth. Last week I spoke on ley lines and portals, and this sort of ties in with it, and is food for thought. People who tend to believe in Hollow Earth claim there are different alien species living under it. Whether you are talking about the reptilians or greys, usually I do not hear too much about the Pleiadians or mantis beings. In some theories, some believe that the aliens come here and settled within the earth, and some have gone on to say whether the flood from the Nephilim, before the flood, some Nephilim fled underground or were sophisticated enough to build flying devices to fly away in like UFOs, and this is why later on the children of Israel are dealing with the sons of Anak. So we can see that after the flood there were still Nephilim, but it doesn't specify another incursion took place, although I believe they still happen to this day. Now, backtracking to the Hollow Earth theory, I myself do somewhat believe it to extent that there is some type of world beneath our feet, and some may argue, what about the plate tectonics and so on, and I feel that it can be explained. DUMBs, which stands for Deep Underground Military Bases, like those in Colorado, along with places like Area 51 in Dulce, New Mexico, and so forth. I've heard rumors that they keep many of their experiments and newly genetic engineered creatures beneath our feet, and most likely saving them for the tribulation or Armageddon. In the World of Demonic Possession video, I state that demons need a body to possess. With the creation of creatures such as there were in the ancient days, they now have a body to possess, bodies far more robust and capable of activities that the human body is limited. Stories of Hollow Earth are always horrific. They are never pleasant stories, and some say from a satellite view of the Earth there is a giant depression that is unexplained. Of course, critics will say if there were a Hollow Earth, this interferes with the ideal of plate tectonics. As someone who loves science and even is majoring in biology, although it is not earth science, I am always curious to new ideals, although I rely on facts and evidence. I understand that, like it says in 1 Corinthians 2:14, the person without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, but considers them foolishness, and cannot understand them because they are discerned only through the Spirit. I still have a strong faith in God, and after all the supernatural experiences I've been through, it would be foolish to deny the existence of the supernatural, but I do understand those skepticism of such ideals. If you have never experienced it and you fail to see the significance of God's Word, then this will all seem nonsensical to you, and you will most likely scoff at it and see it as mere mythology. However, one thing I began to realize is the world around me was nothing as it seemed, and all the years growing up was, in many may say, a matrix, and slowly I'm shown more and more, but I also warned to be cautious about where you seek information and realize within the people claiming to be truthful, there are people sent out to spread disinformation. Returning to Hollow Earth, the ideal seems ridiculous, that we have a world beneath our feet, and when I heard it for the first time I thought it was silly too, but then I began to hear testimonies of hell, how people would descend into what seemed like a portal beneath the earth, and there were a couple of scriptures I want to share and I feel may support it. In Ephesians 4:9, it says, "And he went up, what is descending unless he also descended into the lower parts of the earth." In Amos 9:2, "Though they dig into hell, my hand will take there. Once again, we see this reference to digging down here to hell. How can you dig into hell unless it's beneath us on earth? As we can see in the reference of Christ ascending into the lower parts. And also in Amos 9 it talks about though they dig into hell, which sounds interesting. Not to mention that in the book of Enoch it talks about the watchers being imprisoned beneath the earth, and which is Tartarus. So how does Hollow Earth tie into fallen angels? And this may sound silly, but they have truly went underground just as they operate in the sky. If you have ever heard the phrase "as above, so below," a copy as it is on earth as it is in heaven, in this case it is speaking about parallels. So just as we dwell on the earth and we have the sun provide us the sunlight for things to grow, there is a world beneath our feet. Potentially, I believe that the Earth's core is actually related to hell or Tartarus. When I did the Book of Enoch video, I talked about how many of them were imprisoned on Earth and they would be thrown into the lake of fire. It would heal the Earth, which is interesting. Sheol seems to be within the Earth as well. Another very fascinating thing to consider is oftentimes before a natural disaster strikes, strange activity is seen in the sky. For instance, there's actually a phenomenon called earthquake lights before they usually occur. California has been under watch since it's on the San Andreas fault line that many expect to erupt, detaching it from the rest of the country out there. Out here in the Midwest in southern Missouri, there is the new Madrid fault line. Yesterday, as I turned on the TV, Good Morning America was on, and I think I'm saying his name wrong, but Michio Kaku speaking on the potential quake that could occur since more earthquakes have been occurring. I do believe that plate tectonics and hollow earth I do believe that there are plate tectonics and hollow earth, as well as the electromagnetic energy I discussed in the prior video does all tie into cataclysmic events. Also, I didn't discuss this last time, but fallen angels would actually use sound to move large objects, and some believe the Nephilim could do this, and on their skulls you can find in their nasal pharyngeal cavity something very interesting. So basically anti-gravity and our harmonic waves. There have been pictures of sound captured coming from the pyramids, which are aligned with the stars. As I stated before, portals and dimensions work with sound. Some people have been claiming to have heard strange sounds. This whole universe we live in, which I am still studying, but I believe space and time may be one. These fallen angels have managed to do a great job of deceiving the world, especially those of us residing in the Western Hemisphere, that they do not exist, that they are demons, and so on. And why worry about something that is mere mythology, right? So many misconceptions we hear in church. So few people understand what is truly going on. You cannot win a battle if you do not know your enemy's strategies. Some people choose to turn a blind eye to the sinister side of the supernatural, and I see why, and they don't see why we should focus on it. But the problem is if the devil is warring on you, whether you like it or not, it does affect you. This past week, people have been telling me about dreams they're having, which these beings are trying to procure sympathy from them, or they see them waging war on people. I was informed by someone that they are actually seeing blue globes everywhere they go, and asked me about them. I was unsure at first, and I tried looking it up, and all I got was that they were UFOs. Then it prompted a memory of light orbs. So many people have different theories on what light orbs are. Are they UFOs, ghosts, demons, fallen angels? I believe since angels are made of fire, that is why hell was originally created for them. But it says that Satan can transform himself into an angel of light. I believe most light orbs are indeed fallen angels. This would solve the mystery of UFOs, since they defy the laws of physics when they turn and seem to dematerialize from the world and then return. It's because these fallen angels are moving between the natural world and the physical, and the supernatural. And now what is fascinating is the fact that they are choosing to manifest themselves more and more to people, offering more and more people to hear their stories, to sell their soul. People like to think that this is all fake, but it isn't. When the devil tempted Jesus, he offered him power, and all he had to do was worship him. I believe fallen angels are in charge of when you sell your soul, as people call it. When a person sells their soul, there is blood involved. They sign a contract in blood, and when they do this, they have made a pact. As I stated before, life is in the blood. These fallen angels and demons are blood hungry. This is why, going back to ley lines, there's usually bloodshed on these ley lines, whether it's massacre, war, natural disasters, or so on. They love blood. They drink it to sustain themselves here, and the Nephilim drank blood as well and ate flesh. These angels are desperate for us to sympathize with us, and I can attest to this. Also, they also want to be able to find a way so they don't have to, that they can appear to everyone, and it's not just select people that will see them. Around spring of last year, I had a dream I was sitting in a house in the desert. There wasn't much going on, and suddenly I could see through my window from a distance men approaching the home. I stood up instinctively and walked over toward the door. They came to it, and I opened it, and they took a seat inside. They began to talk to me. They told me I had their story wrong, and they had been judged unfairly. Soon enough, in these dreams, they were so vivid, I'd fly around with one in particular, and we went all over the world exploring. He showed me technology in outer space, and these dreams continued, and I began to awake, terrified, as I could feel them standing in my room as well, as I could hear them talking, and I would pray. Now, this is just my case. There are many more stories out there like this. These fallen angels are always looking for sympathy, always looking for a way to point the finger at God. Look at Gnosticism. It is proof of which gnosis means knowledge. These angels brought all sorts of knowledge to man. Back in the mystery schools, they set up secret societies, and they still do exist. People higher up on the totem pole of these societies know they are worshiping fallen angels, believe they are their ancestors as well. People on the lower end of the totem pole in the occult, some don't even think they are worshiping demons. They believe it's all nature and gods and goddesses, and would be offended if you said that they were devil worshippers and so forth. Satanism and witchcraft are different, and most Wiccans consider themselves doing white magic. They are all about nature, and their magic isn't hurting anyone. But what some don't understand and others are affronting is that they are indeed worshiping demons, and people higher up worship the actual principalities. Now, another thing I get from some, and I've heard it again and again, is Lucifer and Satan and the devil are different. Now, the devil can be used for an evil spirit, I understand that, but I take the stance that they are one and the same. Some will turn Lucifer into the good guy, and I'm not here to argue that. I've had dreams including him, and while they sound wild, they did happen, and these dreams speak for themselves about the nature of him. I'm sure there are others of you out there who have encountered him as well. When I was 7 years old, I was staying in a hotel in Kansas City, which I now live, but I was visiting from Omaha. And as I laid in bed, I was plagued with a nightmare of a tornado that struck down, destroying everything around me. Then suddenly it stopped, and I woke up sweating and afraid. I had gotten into an argument with my parents before going to bed, and I was feeling somewhat up in arms. I fell asleep again, but this time I heard a voice that was soothing and comforting, and I could feel something sitting on my bed, and it began to ask me why I still served God. Hadn't I suffered enough? What was I benefiting from it? As I stated before, growing up, I was usually either invisible or the outcast, constantly ridiculed for being different than my peers, and always considered mature for my age as far as the way I articulated myself. So at first, I started to feel sucked in, but then when he began to talk about God in a negative way, I began to feel sick. He told me he had his own plan for me, and I wanted nothing to do with him. After that, I had no more encounters until I reached my teens. Another one I fell into a deep sleep, and then I saw someone approaching me with a mask, what appeared to be that of a white tiger. Then it changed to that of a bird, and then a couple of other beings. When he got to me, I began to feel paralyzed, and then I realized it was him, and chains came around me in the dream, and I was chained to the bed. I then began to feel myself falling in the dream, almost as if I were descending into what seemed like hell. I screamed and prayed. He told me I should kill myself, and told me every bad thing I had ever heard my entire life. This is when God confirmed to me that these negative things people always have to say come from demons and fallen angels. The last one I will share, which is the most bizarre, happened nearly 8 months ago, and this one sticks out to me the most. It was after I began having encounters with fallen angels and learning about the connection of spirit spouses and marine spirits, which the devil fought me and tried to stop me. In many ways in the dream, I was actually leaving school, and my mom hadn't picked me up yet, and I felt a little upset about it. Then a man drove up, and I got in the car with him. I didn't know him, and we began to talk. Suddenly, I began to go through the roof of the car and levitate so far up into the sky past the plane and continue to ascend. I was nervous. I would die once my lungs came in contact with the atmospheric pressure. And then I began to fall so fast. I was so afraid I was going to die. I thought about my family and how they would never know what happened to me, since my body would be reduced to mere dust. When suddenly a gray-winged creature emerged. It was beautiful. And it had some sort of anti-gravity it provided for me. As we floated in the sky together, he told me he had plans for me and began talking to me. I finally fell back into the car with the guy, and the man asked me, did I talk to Lucifer? I woke up feeling pressure on me as my knees were bent in, and I felt choked, and I prayed, and it stopped. Now, those were just 3 instances that I shared with you to show you how deceptive Satan is. In Ezekiel 28, it describes Lucifer before the fall, referring to him as the Prince of Tyre. Part of the Luciferian doctrine is that Adam and Eve were held as prisoners in the Garden of Eden, that God, or Yahweh, was the evil being who kept them in the dark. Then Lucifer, the light bringer, the morning star, actually isn't bad but misunderstood, and he set them free from the ignorance and enlightened them so they could become as gods. They say how God doesn't want us to indulge in pleasures and so on, and see how quickly, for some sick, self-gratifying person, this can be attractive. The Luciferian doctrine is old. It calls him himself to get kicked out of heaven because he thought he could be greater than God. See, he sees his followers as mere apes. Evolution is just hatred for us, that we were first monkeys. Then this is his FU to humanity. As we can see, he is a deceiver. Another thing people confirm to me is that fallen angels are not these ugly-looking beings people make them out to be, and appear very beautiful and ethereal, like they once were, whereas demons are usually hideous to look at. I mean, not to sound obnoxious, but how do you think the women of Earth were willing to go with them? Some people even feel they almost try to hypnotize them to get them to do what it is they want them to do. And they operate on a higher amount of what some may call energy than demons. If you have ever heard of the book, if you ever heard the book Demon by Tosca Lee, I think this is the case a lot of times. Nowadays, with a lot of books and movies, you see that these beings literally have people acting as scribes to share their stories. They recreate their image to seem like superheroes, like on the movie Hancock. I mean, who doesn't like a superhero? This is why there is such a push. So as we can see, as they are deceptive, cunning, and have an extreme hatred for mankind, in Islam, it is believed that they refused to bow down to Adam when he was created, and they are cursed. They are called jinn. Fallen angels hate mankind. They hate the fact that we have a chance to be redeemed. They targeted the woman because they produced the future, and God gave the prophecy in Genesis of Christ coming through the woman. They thought they could get rid of it. That this is why abortion is also pushed. It's a form of eugenics. The more babies are reduced, the less population, the less people they have to contend with when they return. I want to talk about their return. Some people believe there is something the government has worked on called Project Bluebeam. This is when they are going to use holographic images to actually fake the second coming of Christ and make it seem a rapture occurred. When this happens, alien saviors will descend, and people say we'll see holographic images of Christ and maybe even other religious deities from other religions in the clouds. I want to take this theory a step further. You should know by now I'm full of them, and try not to shy away from sharing them. I think Mars has a role to play in this, just like the moon. Like the movie Elysium, which is based off an ancient place, I believe, while the elite have their bunkers to go into when things hit the fan, I think there will be an even greater agenda. Not only will some of the fallen angels claim they're the returning Anunnaki from Nibiru, or Zeta Reptuli, or maybe Martians, but I think we have been lied to about much of what's up there in outer space. Roswell, as I said before, was their little holler at the world that they may exist. As Aleister Crowley said, today they call them angels and demons, tomorrow we will call them something else. The famous Satanist who was given the book of the law by a demon who he drew as an extraterrestrial even stated that they masqueraded themselves. Going a step further, I believe some of those instrumental in this conspiracy will look as if they are raptured, maybe even some celebrities. They will be taken to places like Mars and the Moon. I think they have already been terraformed, and contrary to what they want us to believe, life can be sustained there. This will be their way of trying to escape God's wrath in the tribulation. They honestly think they can outsmart God, that they can somehow turn the tables and break into heaven, and so on. And so do their followers, sadly. In Amos 9 it states, "Again, though they dig down into the depths below, from there my hands will take them. Though they climb up to heaven above." I believe this is referring to the judgment on those who try to escape, whether it's hollow earth or outer space. They cannot escape the day of the Lord. I've always been asked, when do I think the portals or the fallen angels will make their move? I can't say for sure, but it is an interesting. CERN, who built the Hadron Collider, which they wanted to recreate the Big Bang, is also searching for wormholes and black holes, which is not comforting at all. Their logo speaks for itself with 3 sixes as well as their statue of Shiva, the fallen angel, they have. Last year, my sister and I witnessed something strange, and that was we literally saw a wormhole, I kid you not, form in the sky so fast and then disappeared. After that, I began dreaming and sensing fallen angels. The year before, my area was seeing UFOs around, so it's all telling that they are getting closer to making their move. I've never had an encounter with a UFO or an alien abduction. Well, actually, I take that back. One night, it was the same year that there was UFOs being seen in my town. I was walking, and my mom and sister were with me, and we actually saw 3 strange orange-looking UFOs, and they were like, it's almost as if they were following us, and they began to expand and then grow small. It was very strange. But I had one experience I will share as well that has to do with aliens. And as someone mentioned to me before, it is true. Sometimes when we seek things out like this, they will find us, and you can almost feel them watching you. When I was a senior in high school, I was doing a presentation for my astronomy and a meteorology class on extraterrestrials. This is long before I read the Book of Enoch or even believed demons were separate from fallen angels. I knew that these so-called aliens were demons, but that was about the extent of it. As I was searching for abduction stories, I was having trouble finding ones that seemed legit. When I came across Betty and Barney Hill's story, I then began reading more and more about them, and I began to feel something dark watching me. I got the same sense when I did when I was looking up black-eyed children, and that was mentioned to me as well. I believe they are hybrids of fallen angels, and I was sitting in the bed talking to my sister. Then I passed out suddenly and saw what looked like a group of gray aliens. They told me never to look for them again. I felt myself experiencing sleep paralysis, and after that I stopped. I haven't had anything else like that happen since, but it's true about when you seek things out. We must always be led and pray. Not knowing what I know now, I see why they were upset, but I thought I would share that. I'm curious if anyone listening has ever had an encounter with aliens. Please feel free to share with me. These things are deceptive. These beings are deceptive. What else is interesting is their need to make contact with more and more people on a regular basis. Fallen angels aren't as prone to visit people. They send demons out. So if you have one bothering you, most likely have a huge purpose to play in the future. Also, going back to selling your soul. People laugh at it, but the amount of people who have told me that they have had an offer speaks for itself. These angels are trying to build their own cult following, more worshippers for them when they return. They want to set themselves up as gods and rule over us, which they feel they are so much better than us. They market themselves as superheroes and now as love interest of women as well. Do not be deceived. As more days begin to go by, I am sure the stories will increase of encounters and contact with them. I want you to know if you're having visitations from these beings, they can be stopped in the name of Jesus. However, when dealing with a fallen angel, it does take more faith and persistence than a demon. I know this firsthand, but do not be afraid. Remember Ephesians 6:11. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in His power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. Also, I'm going to give you some signs that you are dealing with one. Their touch is warm. They have a warm presence, not cold like demons. Extreme fear and intimidation also trying to get you to believe that you are a chosen type of individual, like a prophet, a reincarnated individual, wanting to sell you their story of their fall from heaven. Sometimes they will try to form a sexual relationship with you. Seeing light orbs, strange animals could potentially be shape-shifting fallen angels trying to get you to sell your soul. They aren't interested in possessing your body, they just want a follower. They hate mankind and want to destroy them. They know how to appear beautiful, docile. The description people have given me range, but they always appear like a beautiful human with wings. Sometimes male, sometimes female, depending on their victim. They want to serve as your guide and become upset when you disagree. They have little to say about God, and when they do talk about him, it doesn't line up with the word. If they want you to worship them, then you already know you're dealing with one. So many of these things are just signs. So many of these things are just signs of dealing with them, and there could be more. Be prepared for the coming future. In the weeks to come, I plan to talk more about the tribulation and what will occur during the time. As I always say, I am no expert. I'm constantly praying, reading the Word, and asking for interpretations and asking God to reveal things to me. I know some people are completely against talking about this, especially though that of Satan, but I do feel at this time that is why God has me on this, and He wants me to wake people up and help separate truth from lies. Like I said, I'm only given theories and not predictions. I am no preacher. I like you am seeking the truth and praying and reading my word and using the experiences I've had my entire life to understand what is going on. And if God is speaking to you to share or speak on something, don't be afraid. I hope you enjoyed my video on fallen angels and took something from it. And as always, feel free to talk to me whichever way you'd like to, or if you'd like to comment. I look forward to hearing from you. Please share this video. Keep spreading the word while there's still time. There is an article I found about potential changes to occur with the internet. I posted on my Facebook page a couple of weeks ago. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. Thank you for watching, and God bless.